Welcome to Uncharted Paths, our lecture series. And today we're excited to explore the intersection of art, community, and self expression through photographic art on a city scale. And we're thrilled to introduce our speaker, Uday, Associate Director of Education and Partnerships at Chennai Photo Biennale Foundation. In this session, Uday will take us through the journey of setting up city scale exhibitions for photographic art, highlighting the Chennai Photo Biennale's effort to promote photographic art as a vital channel for representation, self expression, and community engagement. We'll delve into the fourth edition of Chennai Photo Biennale, posing the question, why photograph? And exploring slower approaches to image making.
A little bit about the speaker. So, Uday brings about over 20 years of experience in management, development, and social impact sectors. His passion lies in driving sustainable initiatives, empowering underserved communities, and exploring the intersection of art and well-being. With expertise in festival management, exhibition design, program design, and social emotional learning, Uday is perfectly positioned to share insights on the Chennai Photo Biennale's innovative approach. So let's embark on this journey with Uday sir, exploring the power of photographic art in shaping communities and conversations. Over to you, sir.
So thank you so much. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Seema, who was kind enough to invite us, and for a lovely introduction of myself. So today I'll be talking to you a little bit about the work that we do at Chennai Photo Biennale. Before I start, I would just like to understand if anybody has been to a Biennale in India or outside India. That's one. And the second thing is that, do you know what a Biennale is? Right. So I think these are two questions that I would like you to just think about as we're going to be going through this presentation. Just give it a second. Yes. So today I'm going to be speaking to you a little bit about Chennai Photo Biennale. Chennai Photo Biennale, of course, is a Biennale. The word Biennale itself means once every 2 years. So when we talk about Biennale, it is a large-scale public exhibition that happens across the city of Chennai, the metropolitan city of Chennai, every 2 years. And today is going to be a presentation about our foundation, the various aspects, the work that we do, and focusing more on the design aspect of what does it mean to to launch a large-scale exhibition. So the first slide, as you can see, talks about community education and public art. I think that encapsulates the essence of what our foundation is, right? We focus a lot on community. We look at how art can be taken to the public and how can we engage through communication, through education programs throughout the year. So a little bit about the foundation. The CPB Foundation has a few verticals. The first vertical, of course, is the Chennai Photo Biennale at large, which is the large-scale exhibition, which talks about critical thought through public art. We also have the education program, which focuses on primary and university level education, where we take our curriculums, whether it be photography or media arts, into public spaces and to classrooms across the country. We also have community programs, fellowships that we run through the course of the year that we'll be talking a little bit more about. And we have a learning space, a library, and an art lab that we engage with in our, which is our office. A little bit about our journey, right? 2016 was where it all started. It was three photographers who came together, and it was their brainchild to start a photo festival in collaboration with Goethe Max Muller Bhuvan, right? So this is a collaboration where they set out to launch this program across the cities, right? And the idea was very simply to make photography accessible to the larger audience and more around contemporary art. Contemporary art at that point, or still to some extent, is not really explored a lot in the metropolitan city of Chennai, right? So 2016 was the launch. 2017, because of the success of what had happened, they decided that they should set up a trust. A foundation was set up in 2017. And then immediately after that, they were starting to do programming through the course of the year. Once they realized that it was, that one of the passions which was about education for children and photography specifically, 2018, the Prism wing was created, and that's where I work predominantly under, right? And 2019 was the second edition. Second edition was also the introduction of the photo awards. This is a very important thing that was a pan-India award that we worked with across. And this has again been launched every year when we are doing not only the Biennale, but also the off years. 2020 was the establishing of the Learning Lab. The Learning Lab, to be very simply put, takes care of all the audience above the age of 18, right? Whether it is mentorship, whether it is talking about workshops, what do you call personal workshops, or in colleges. This is something that the Learning Lab takes care of. This is also around the time when COVID hit, right? And this is the time when I joined CPB as well. And we started looking at how we can take the foundation into larger projects and across various geographies. 2013 was the third edition, also the launch of the Kanav Fellowship Program, which was a very beautiful program. Kanav in meaning dreams, and it was designed for women in photography, empowering them and working with women across Tamil Nadu and giving them the skills to be able to take this up as a profession. 2022, the Kochi Biennale, we were part of the Kochi Biennale exhibition, which happened last year. And 2023 was the launch of our lighthouse, which is basically our working space. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about all the other work that we're doing. So the offshoots of CPB, right? So the offshoots of CPB, there's a lot that we do. So as I mentioned, the visual education that we take to young children and adults, this is something that we have been doing for the last 4 or 5 years now. We started off by mentoring about 2,000 children in a yearly basis. Today, we are mentoring roughly about 500 children in photography, about 150,000 in media arts, and about 72,000 children in visual arts. So this is something that we have been doing systematically through various partners. We also do a lot of workshops and skill development programs for young and professional photographers across the city throughout the year. So these are all programs that run through the course of the year. We also do a lot of teacher training where we look at capacity building. We introduce art pedagogy to educators, NGOs that we are working with, who then take the program out across cities and across other states. The traveling library was something which was started, which is a beautiful project where we have a beautiful collection of photo books in the office, which we take into colleges, government colleges and private colleges, where we get students to engage with our photo books. We also do a lot of exhibition curation, design, and production. This is not only for our own organization, but other organizations ask us to help them curate their exhibitions. A recent exhibition has just concluded. We also do a lot, which is reviving the analog photography. So something that we have been doing, we have a dark room that is functioning, I think the only one in the city at the moment. And we also have been developing and we have been producing film rolls, which we are able to sell online. And if you're interested in that, there's more you can find on our website. Community events, art pop-ups, photo walks, artist talks, reviews is something that consistently happen almost on a monthly basis, whether it's Learning Lab, whether it is the Prism department or the foundation at large, or if it's the darkroom team. So there's a lot happening there. And as I mentioned, photography and media arts curriculum, that has been something that we've been developing in partnership. For example, the media arts curriculum is in partnership with an organization called Nalanda Wave Foundation, which is now being rolled out into about 400 Anganwadi schools in Delhi. And of course, right, a part of the foundation, which we do is a lot of residencies. There are a lot of awards. There are a lot of grants that is being provided. Again, these are things which I would recommend all of you to be looking out for, subscribe to our newsletter, understand the kind of work that we've been doing. So what is our vision, right? So I think before I jump straight into the vision, I'd like to just say, right, the idea of Chennai Photo Biennale has always been to create a safe space, which is art-centric, which is very contextual, relevant, inclusive, and diverse in nature. Um, as curators of the space, it's very, very important for us to be committed in curating work that is void of any discrimination, casteism, derogatory, racist, sexual, explicit undertones, right? So it's very important as curators of the space that all of us are very ethically tuned to what is happening. At the same time, not being afraid to present work which sort of pushes the boundaries of what is there today, right? And again, so as a vision is to build and strengthen a community of empathy, creativity, self-expression. I think this is critically important for us because as all the people that work in our team, this is something that is always innate to our beings as who we are. And of course, as contemporary art organization, we want to be able to put Chennai on the map of contemporary arts, specifically in lens-based productions, right? And we also want to be able to provoke thought, right? Whether when you talk about Chennai visitors, something where we feel that there is not enough discourse around photography and lens-based practices in the south of India today. And of course, nurturing a photography community that's vibrant, not only in Chennai, but across the country today. And of course, we talk about the social impact of art, right? As I said, all the projects that we choose are projects which have certain aspects of social issues that are brought into light. So a little bit, I would like to play a video. I hope that you're able to see the video. This is now getting straight into the Biennale. So I hope all of you were able to see that short video. Now we're going into the crux of the Biennale as such, and here we would like to talk a little bit about the relevance and its impact, right? From the numbers perspective, as well as how it was designed from inception to date. So the pilot phase, as I had spoken to you about 2016, was a very impromptu, but at the same time, a lot of thought had gone into it, right? There were 3 photographers who came together and decided, you know what, we would like to make photography more accessible to the larger audience. It's in collaboration, of course, with the Goethe Institute in Chennai. And these were some of the statistics of that first show, right? It was only an 18-day show, but which saw, artists from 34 countries that came together. That 164 artists came together, and there were 35 events done in 18 days across 19 venues, right? And I must say at this point that the team, when it started off, was extremely small, right? And it was such a huge success because they did these shows across parks, public galleries, cultural institutions, train stations, and it was all curated by the founders, right? So it really was something that Chennai had never experienced or seen until that moment, right? And because of its success and the feedback that people gave, the founders, they decided, now let's try to take this up in a much more serious way. The second edition, right? The second edition, for the first time, what happened was the founders said, okay, let us now give the curation to somebody else. And Pushpamala came as a curator for the edition 2. And of course, right, with her comes a large audience. The Biennale this time was extended to 30 days across 16 venues. 13 countries were represented, 50 artists. And you can just see the number of events, right? That 100 plus events over 30 days. So you're talking about events that happen every day, morning, afternoon, evening. And it was something really, truly amazing, which again, the Chennai public was just astonished by and wanted more. So I thought that the hunger had been created by these exhibitions which were being done. And of course, these are some of the feedback that we got during that year. We did an impact study, and 99% of them said definitely they'll recommend an exhibition like this to their friends. 85% felt Chennai needed to host more such events. 78 became more aware of new experiences, new artists, and of course, photography at large. 75% felt that they'll definitely visit Chennai again. And of course, these are people who are domestic as well as international. So when we did the study, we realized that there was a lot of domestic travelers, but also a lot of people who came from across the globe, right? Predominantly from London, Berlin, and Paris, right? And the majority of people from India came from Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore, right? So it was quite encouraging. 13% of domestic travelers, 5 international travelers, and of course 78% of the local Chennaiites who are able to come and engage with the exhibition. So third edition, moving from there, COVID hits, and COVID is something which was, surprised everybody. The Biennale was planned for a sort of venues across the city, and as COVID was happening and more restrictions, we decided to pivot the entire experience. So this time it was 60 days, but there were 6 venues which were sort of like where you like physical venues. A lot of programming happened online, right? And a lot of visitors were able to see the exhibition from across the world. And this time, from one curator, what we decided was we will do a cross-cultural curation where there were 2 curators from India and 2 curators from Germany who came together and participated in this. And again, it was a fascinating experience where over 40,000 unique page visits happened. There were about 10,000, 150,000 plus users who engaged with the show. Right? So it was a very interesting experience at large. So this is a hybrid plus, there was like an online presence as well as a in-person presence. Now coming to sort of the spaces, architecture and the city, how we engage with it, right? One of the things that I would like to say is that, just to give you a context, right? The context is Chennai has 2,400 plus heritage homes across Chennai, right? Going back as far as the Pallavas. And there are some buildings as old as 200-year-old buildings. It's the second largest collection of heritage spaces only after Kolkata, right? So this was perfectly poised for us to be able to use these spaces and exhibit works across these spaces. Of course, there are a lot of challenges in working with spaces like this, which I will talk to you a little bit more in detail. And here I want to just highlight a few of the kinds of exhibitions and spaces that we have been doing, right? So the different kinds of formats of forms that we have done. A simple format, for example, this is a work of Santayan Ghosh. Basically, he had done a workshop and then this became part of the Biennale through a sound and video production, right? And this was screen printing work that he had been working on. And this became part of the Biennale. This was presented in a library, which is called RMRL, which is the Roja Mutaya Library, which is, again, it is a library space which was converted into an exhibition. This one was Voices Are Louder. This is an exhibition which was created in the Alliance Française, right? Again, a video production and large-scale prints were used. So we are using spaces which are designed for exhibitions as well as spaces which are not designed for exhibitions, and we we design our exhibitions based on the space that we have. Then you have something simpler, which this was an exhibition which was in Dhaka, which is a student showcase that we had done. And here again, this is basically, we had done it on panels. This is a COVID project where children got to document what was around them, right, over a course of a few months. And this was then presented to us and then presented to the larger audience. So again, a smaller exhibition working with about 40 kids across India, but this was a beautiful exhibition and got to engage with a larger audience in Dakshin Chitra. This was one of the more ambitious projects, which was in the Senate House. This was a building which was, it's about 200 plus years, and it took a large amount of funds just to get it to a place where we were able to use it, even before the mission started. And then from that space onwards, we were able to create these exhibitions and engagements where the large amount of public were able to see it. This was the first time the Chennai public got to see this building. And since this exhibition, unfortunately, this building has never been given to any other organization or institution for any exhibitions. And this is a sad reality, unfortunately, which I will talk to you a little bit more about. This is another exhibition that we did in a small village at the end of a 5-day program in deep south of Tamil Nadu. This is a very simple, impromptu exhibition that was created. The backdrop is actually what typically men wear in South India, which is veshtis. And these prints are printed at a local shop. All we used was basically twine, clips, and images. And we got the local community to come and engage with the work. This was another exhibition that we did, which was Forest of Mirrors, which was basically an exhibition which was created in the Egmore Museum. Again, a student showcase. The idea of this was that we did not want to completely block out the space, and it was sort of a space where people could walk through. And this is typically an area where most people, when in the museum, come to sit and have lunch. So it will be a place where you come and sit, eat lunch, and be able to engage the art. And this again was a project that we worked with about 40 children across Tamil Nadu, and which was open for about a 1 month duration. This was another exhibition, again working with school children for about 5 schools. 2 of the schools were children who were from the deaf and dumb community. And this was about a project called Hope and Happiness. This was an exhibition done inside a restaurant of sorts where they have a small gallery, and we were able to get the children to done. And the prints were basically imprinted on these sort of sheets which were rolled down and exhibited. This is another very interesting project, a case study which I'll talk to you a little bit more about. Again, this is a combination of a video production, photography, and cyanotype printmaking on fabric. And this is a project which is about Kiledi, which I have kept a little bit later for a little bit more deep dive when I talk about the case study. Again, this is a space which is actually a library, which is then converted into an exhibition space. This is another exhibition which happened where there was a projection on the building itself, right? So the idea here was Kishore Prakash. No, sorry, this was another one which was the Third Place Collective, right? So this is the Government Museum of Fine Arts where the exhibition was projected onto the building. This is another very interesting of Kishore Prakash from India. It was a Bangladesh war. Again, this was in Lalit Kala. Lalit Kala, of course, is a gallery space. So, of course, it becomes easier. But again, right, it takes up a subject which is quite difficult, but being able to be presented. This is, again, a student showcase, which was done in the Egmore Museum. Again, a project which was done on for students by students. This is an interesting project which was called Shared Tides. It's a residential program that we worked on with 2 artists from Sri Lanka and 2 artists from India. The space that we occupied was a factory, a biscuit factory, which is basically adjacent to our office. And yeah, so it was the space which was taken up and then which was converted into a gallery. And the photo on the bottom showcases the work of one of the artists. This is another artist's work, which is called Shiv Sai, sorry, and his work was on forced disappearances, about what happens in Jammu and Kashmir. So his whole engagement was documentation and photography, and taking archives of families, which was represented in images as well as sort of booklets where people were able to engage with the art. And this was placed in an art gallery. This again is another showcase that we have done in Dakshin Chitra. Again, we use the amphitheater as a space where people could sit, where normally it would be a very sort of a presentation or a show, and this became the show itself. This was another interesting installation, which was done as in an art gallery, where we looked at a video production where the artist was presenting their work through a series of images and video recording of herself in a loop. And the image and the base of it was basically mud, which was reflecting the image as images also, which was there. So a mud-based basin and video production. Here, an artist basically documented architecture in a city, which was then represented in large-scale prints on a building, right? So these were architecture-based images, which are based again on a building. Here, an artist's work is being presented in a book format in a library, right? So the space was designed. I mean, of course, the library is the Madras Literary Society, and of course, the artist's work was created in a large-scale format where the audience were able to engage with the work by going through images and text. Here again, this is again images of from one of the work, which is the Senate House. These are cutouts of the work, photography and cutouts, and then placed for the audience to engage with the art. This was Fauna of Mirrors is about 12 artists' work embedded and represented. There was a construction created within Lalit Kala, and this is a way which the audience were able to sort of move through spaces and look at art. So wherever you stood, you'll be able to look at some piece of art that was there. This was again Lalit Kala, the representation of an artist called Kop Shiva. Basically, the work was represented. And again, this is outside an exhibition, large-scale prints hung between the corridors and basic material which is looked at, right? So things which most people will discard, we look at how do we look at creating sustainable projects. Again, this is another artist's work, which was large-scale prints pasted on the walls, as well as the work placed on the bottom for the audience to be able to engage with. This is another work which was done in Alliance Francaise, traveling plans, which is about postcards of images which are taken from around Chennai by submission. And this was placed in this beautiful structure where people are able to move around the left and right and engage with art. This is another work which is basically a video production where you go inside and be able to engage with the work that is being presented. So it's a sort of an immersive experience. This was an interesting project which was done in the metro stations in Chennai, right? So metro stations are very underutilized, and it's more around people who just keep taking trains and back. So how do you create spaces, and how do you create work where people are able to pause on the busy days to look at it? So this is another interesting project which was done in the MRT stations across Chennai. And this is a project which was done inside a mall. Again, a student work inside a mall. This is actually a shop which is converted and created. The same structure which was outside now has been moved inside. And again, a body of student work was presented here. And then the last image which I'd like to show is that we also do from large scale exhibitions to now smaller scale exhibitions. And this happened in a school, a public school that we're working in, a corporation school. So at the end of our program, there's always an exhibition. And this was an exhibition basically on a stage. That's all the space that we had to work with. So the exhibition was basically the images of the students and the work that was done there. And this is some of the children and patrons engaging with the art. And community relevance, right? I think very important is that when you're doing such programs, large scale programs as well as small programs, how does the community, how do we engage with the community? So there's a lot that we can speak about, and since it's limited time, I just wanted to pull out two projects of this, right? I think this one project was very interesting. This project was launched on Madras Day. It was called Number Kadagal, which is basically our stories. This was the work of our children from the corporation schools that we work with. We work with them for the course of the year, right? And this was an exhibition that was done in front of the Ripon building, which is an historical building by itself. And this was the first large scale exhibition that was done there. This is in parallel with a Hindu exhibition that was done. And a beautiful thing about it is that the children, these students who normally don't get to engage with anybody apart from their school or their communities, get to meet dignitaries. So on the top left, you have a student from grade 5 engaging with the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, the Commissioner, the Mayor of Tamil Nadu, right? So these are the opportunities that these children get through the programs that we design. And of course, these are schools which are not Chennai, which not many arts organizations go into. And we are very few organizations going in, working with these communities to be able to provide these such opportunities. So this is another project which we do, is that at the end of the last year's the student showcase, we did a photo carnival, right? And the photo carnival was exactly the same thing as basically driving the largest audience into the spaces. So this was the EGMO Museum, the theater behind, the EGMO Theater, which is behind. We used their space and created various different activities through the course of that one day, whether it was storytelling, caption writing, cyanotype, printmaking, photography, and a whole bunch of other things were done in that short period of time. And I think 40 plus schools got to participate in that day. 250 participants. So this is just a short video. I hope you're able to see it. Let me display it.
Welcome to the Creative Carnival.
So I think you just have a very short idea or a little bit of an idea of the kind of engagements that we do. The two case studies that I wanted to share with the team today was basically this project of Kilidi. So this is a project which was commissioned by us towards Saranraj, was a local artist. And Kilidi is an area in Tamil Nadu which is now doing a lot of excavation, looking at Tamil history and its heritage. Right, and what has happened is that a lot of emphasis has been placed on the excavation site and its history, but not so much on the people. So what happened was this artist took up this project of going into their community, staying with the community and documenting the people who are doing the excavation, right? And the idea of it was, there was a film made about their journey, right? About how that they are digging their history but not really being represented, because that was one thing that was missing. So what he decided to do was to basically document the entire process, as well as use cyanotype, which uses the sun, the power of the sun, to be able to create this negative, right? And so what he did was, because these people are sitting in the sun for the entire day, he felt that this was a right homage to be able to give to them, to be able to provide this exhibition, which is very beautiful, where you would be able to engage with the kind of work that these people are doing, be able to listen to their voices through the small documentary that he presented, and these large prints which were done, which was on cloth, which are beautiful A3 plus images, right, which are placed on either side of the exhibition. So there's a very beautiful thing which I want to share a little bit about. The next project which I wanted to talk to you a little bit about was this project, which was about an artist who used MRT stations, right? And the idea here was he wanted to use, sorry, he basically looked at how urban waters in Chennai were being used and how water is being polluted. So what he did was he started documenting places and people who lived around these water bodies, and then took beautiful photographs of the work. Sorry, it is a she who did this work. My apologies. And then afterwards, these big prints which were made, large scale prints which were made, were then immersed in the water, right? So if you can see this, the kind of fade and the color that has happened, that's basically because of the pollution, right? And that was being represented in these large formats, and this was in MRT stations. And the whole idea of urban water and how these important issues are not being really talked about. So I think these are two important case studies, how we can use photography, image making to also bring out very important issues that are happening around us, right? And the relevance of design. I think this is something that is very interesting. One is that, at CPB, we have an extremely competent team of staff who work across various verticals. And of course, the design team are extraordinary, right? So they are the ones who sort of create the kind of things that we put out. So the design language of most of our things is something which is very important. And I think here, when we did the launch of the CPB Lighthouse, right, we worked with a group of people who looked at it and asked us, right, if CPB was a person, what kind of characteristics this person would have, right? And I think this is something that we went through the process of designing. A logo came to light through that. And here after some of the logos that we had, right? So we had one of the logos, which is the dark room. Of course, it has to be a little darker. The library, because of the books. The art lab, because it's a little vibrant. And of course, the lighthouse itself, right? So this is just to give you an idea that CPB Foundation has one logo, but then there are small subsidiaries of it as well. And of course, when it comes to the Biennale, right? The Biennale itself has its own design language. Each Biennale will have its own design language. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about 2021, 2022 design language. Of course, the whole curatorial note was a little dark. It was a little bit heavy, and it talked about extremely important issues. Hence, the idea of keeping a sort of a more plain background was also very critically important. And these images were there on the bottom were also sort of like a campaign in which we went about doing. And of course, the underlining theme on all the work is photography, right? And so this is something that we did, the campaign which was organized, right, about camera heads was something that we did. And it was a fun experience where we got to take these live cutout cardboard cutouts of cameras and give it to people across the city. And we had some extremely enthusiastic volunteers who did it. So these are just a few of the images of that. And I think the campaigns is always about that, right? How do you make it fun? How do you make it creative? And then the design language, as I was talking about, right? The team and the curators of every show, right, come together. So that the design team, who basically is about two of them sitting in a room in our office, comes out with some extraordinary ideas based on what the curatorial note is, what is the project about, what kind of images are coming out. So this is a project which I shared a little bit about before, which was in this factory, which is across our office, and it was a biscuit factory. So from designing what goes on our social media, what goes on when there's a panel discussion, how are we communicating this? Is there a backdrop, right? What is the banners that go out? Everything from A to Z will be designed by the team, and of course, the design language will be identical. Now, this is a little bit more, let's say, an adult kind of program. Right now, the next one I want to show is a little bit of a student-driven program. So this was what happened in the mall, right? So of course, if it's student-driven, it needs to be, the language has to change a little bit. And this was again Nama Kadagal, which was basically meaning our story. This is a fascinating show that we did in a mall, presenting the work of all these different artists from corporation schools, private schools. And I think this project, I think the reach was about 14 lakh visitors got to experience the show. Right. And I think, again, you can see the design language. We went a very different direction. So every project for us will have a very specific design language. And the design team, as I mentioned, right, sit and sort of constantly keep working on different things, because at the foundation, there are so many verticals and so many projects that happen any given week, that there's always something that they're working on, whether it's including this deck is something that they help me with. Right. So as we're coming close to the end of it, I wanted to briefly talk to you a little bit about the challenges. Of course, the challenges for an organization, an arts organization like us, is funding, right? So most art organizations struggle with funding. So funding becomes critical, and I think only recently we were able to get our FCRA, which means that we can receive funds from outside India. But that being said, patronage for the arts, specifically for contemporary arts, is not so visible today in India, right? And I think this is something that more organizations start talking about. Supporting the arts, it becomes critical. Access to heritage spaces, right? And the access to heritage spaces becomes complicated because most of these are controlled by various departments. And as we're running up to the Biennale, almost all of us have been struggling to get permission letters, to get meetings with various government officials, going into these spaces, understanding how can they be utilized, what state they are in, what kind of budgets will be involved in bringing a place like that to life. So all these important aspects also. So the access to heritage spaces, though there are so many buildings in Chennai, is limited, is still little limited. And of course, the buy-in by the government, right? The buy-in by the government, what I mean by this is that art and culture is widely being supported by the Tamil Nadu government, but contemporary art is still not yet so visible. Right? Today, over the last few editions, the fourth edition now, the government feels like, oh, you know what, now definitely Chennai Photo Biennale should be a part of the touristic calendar. So this is the buy-in. It will take some time, especially if you're an art organization, going into a new city, understanding, getting in the buy-in from the government. And now I will quickly finish with the what is coming up, and then we can go into the Q&A. So for this part, what I wanted to do is that, if you don't mind, I'll just read out the curatorial note, a bit of the curatorial note of the Chennai Photo Biennale Edition 4. The main question that we're asking is, why photograph, right? And there is various exhibitions. And I'll just read out the curatorial note. You can find the remaining part of it on the website. So let me start reading. Photography, invented in 1920, has revolutionized, for better or worse, how we record and remember things. 5 billion photos are taken every day, and more than 14 billion images are shared daily on social media. Photography has become spontaneous act and universal language now. In this age of excessive image production, the question that begs to be asked and answered, not just by photographers and artists, by anyone, is, why do we photograph? Who are we photographing for? What is happening to photography, its users, makers, and viewers? What kind of work do we want our pictures to do? A quote by Sunil Gupta: "The job of a photographer, of an artist, is not to provide answers, but to build the work and their practice to ask the right questions." The fourth edition of Chennai Photo Biennale poses the question, why photograph? And unfolds a set of inquiries into our relationship with photography. In this era of visual saturation, CPB4 brings together slower approach to image making. It showcases a diverse range of artists who are reshaping dominant narratives by addressing gaps in representation, remixing colonial visual vocabulary with native avant-garde aesthetics, and shifting the gaze from lone photographer to forge an ethic of care and collective authentication. So this is a little bit of our curatorial note. The remaining can be found on our website. A little bit about the coming edition, right? These are some of the large-scale exhibitions we're going to be thinking about. So this is phase 1, which will be launched in December 20th. We have native Jay Singh, who's going to be curating this beautiful exhibition of 12 Tamil photographers, Roots That Reach for the Sky, a beautiful exhibition. And that's going to be a mix between photography, video, and a combination. We have We Are Not a Genre. It's a working title. It's a women's show. Again, this is going to be in Lalit Kala and curated by CPB Foundation. And sorry. So this is going to be another exhibition that's going to be done. And this is again in phase 1. Phase 2, Sunil Gupta's retrospective. Sunil Gupta, as some of you might know, is one of the most renowned photographers across India. He's a queer photographer, and he's going to be exhibiting for the first time a retrospective of all his work. And I think this is going to be a fascinating show because it's never been done before. Why? What makes me click? Now, this is something which is very passionate to me and my team, because this is a sort of a children's Biennale. We are working with about 15 projects across the globe with other organizations also. This is going to be a fascinating work, and the entire design for this production is going to be very child-centric. So again, this is going to be, we are in fact meeting the architects tomorrow in the venue, basically to start ideating on this. Open call exhibition. For the first time, Chennai Photo Biennale has done an open call. So if any of you are photo enthusiasts and want to submit your work, please do. There's still a few more days left. And this is going to be again exhibited in a large scale production, which is going to reach lakhs and lakhs of people. So definitely, if you are a photographer, an enthusiast, do submit your work. So I think that's about it from my end.